Our guest today is a powerful voice in Illinois Democratic politics. He has quietly and effectively built a well-deserved reputation as someone you can trust. He is one who sees public service as one of the great contributions anyone can make to society. He is a graduate of Tilden Technical High School and Loop Junior College. Later, he attended Roosevelt University, majoring in business administration. He also received an honorary degree from Chicago State University. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome back to the City Club of Chicago the President of the Illinois Senate, Emil Jones. Mr. President. All yours, Mr. President.
Good. Well, I'm not. Yeah. I got bad news, so you better stop. First, let me thank you, Jay, for those very warm and kind words of introduction. It's so nice to see so many friends and acquaintances I've had the pleasure of working with over the years. I saw a person here, you know, when I was a little kid growing up in school, Shoup Elementary School out in Morgan Park, and a great educator. She was beautiful. Almost didn't make it out of grammar school. But became renowned, nationally known. I saw her here, Dr. Barbara Sizemore, her educator. She's back here. Yeah. And there are many things we do in government and public life, all the ills we have in society. It always goes back to one thing, our educational institutions. And I see Helen Wooten Bryant sitting over here, and former principal, and person whom became so close to me due to a relationship and how they ran a school. I see you already mentioned her. She's now a commissioner, Lula Ford, sitting over there and everything. And Tom Donovan, when I first went to Springfield, my very first session in Springfield, and I had to substitute for another House member on the Education Committee. And we were discussing the funding. And at that time, you had a formula called the equalizer, resource equalizer formula. It was so complicated. I'm reading the analysis, and I leaned over to then Representative Berman. And I said, explain this to me. He said, just vote the way I vote. So the great education czar of Illinois, who was always my education leader, so good to see you, Art. And friends all, we deal with many, many issues in Springfield. I see my good friends also here, my good friend, the president of SBC Ameritech, Kerry Heitman, and my ex-godson, Mike Lighto. We deal with many, many things in Springfield. It's good to come back again to the City Club. I don't believe I've been back since I've been president, right? I was here. Oh, that's right. Sure. Okay. So many things been happening to us in Springfield of late. You know, I didn't know if I was sober or not, but yeah. But so let me congratulate all of you for the great job that all of you do. And thank you for keeping us well informed as it relates to the issues and things we deal with in Springfield. And let me go back and bring you up to date as to where we are since the last time I was here. We did take care of the modernization of O'Hare Airport, Commissioner Walker. That was a major, we did that. But coming into session this past spring, we saw ourselves with a new governor. We saw ourselves with a big budget deficit, $5 billion, and we had to deal with that problem this past spring. And my meetings I had with the governor, I said, we will work toward balancing the budget, but it will not be balanced on the back of the elderly, the poor, and the school children of the state of Illinois. And he pledged to me that that would not happen. So we were able to balance the budget at the same time, increase funding to our elementary and secondary schools by over $430 million to all the school children across the state of Illinois. And I figured that was a good investment, see, so we were able to do that and not raise taxes. The government pledged he was not going to raise taxes, so we were able to do that, but coupled with many fee increases, and we were able to pass a big $10 billion bond authorization to take care of the state's obligation to its pension systems. And in doing that, we were able to adjourn session this past May, believing that we had a balanced budget, that everything fell into play. We took care of early childhood education by a $30 million increase in that area to take care of the at-risk children ages 3 and 4. We passed legislation to deal with the elderly, the senior citizens, set up the program where they'd be able to purchase drugs as a group at a discount rate. And it's strange how things happen in Springfield, the great university. That legislation, I recall last year, all the seniors from all across the state of Illinois packed the gallery wanting that bill to be called. And it wasn't called. The difference in one person make. This year, the bill passed with nearly unanimous support. Isn't that amazing? So one person does make a difference. So we were able to do that. We even passed legislation this past spring to make college more affordable. We capped the tuition rates so that students who attend college, that rate will remain the same throughout that tenure in college. I see many females here and some males, but we believe everyone should receive equal pay for equal work. You do the job, you should receive the equal pay for the work that you do. We passed that legislation. We expanded kid care programs so we can get more youngsters who were not insured into that program, get the federal dollars to help take care of the health care for our young people is concerned. And one major piece of legislation, series of pieces of legislation we passed, and I made the pledge that time because 3 years ago I set up a task force dealing with the serious problem in Illinois, and that's as related to our flawed criminal justice system. And the former governor came forth with his Blue Ribbon Task Force to also deal with that problem, then came up with a moratorium. And out of that task force, the Blue Ribbon Task Force, with many recommendations from my task force, came proposals for changes in our criminal justice system. And I made a pledge to the former governor, he was presiding over the ceremonies in January, that would be a top priority of mine to pass that legislation, which is so critical. And we did that this past spring. We passed reform legislation as relate to the criminal justice system. We passed, first state in the nation, racial profiling. We passed videotaping of confessions as well as interrogations. And we did that simply because all of you know what happened in Illinois with many innocent persons sitting on death row that were wrongfully convicted. And we passed that. Included in that legislation were one key provision. And that provision called for the decertification of police officers who knowingly perjured themselves in a homicide case and trial. And that was critical to reform. critical. The governor mandatory vetoed it out, whatever his reason was, I couldn't understand. But at the heart of reform, everything goes right back to that one point. It costs taxpayers millions and millions of dollars. You see the awards in the paper just on that one point. So we disagreed on that issue. We have many decent, hard-working law enforcement officers all across the state of Illinois. A few bad apples can taint the whole system. They can taint the system to the degree wherein it could cause a guilty person to go free and an innocent person get convicted. And that should not be. So last week in Springfield, you probably read accounts in the Sun-Times newspaper that we come to an agreement. We were going to override the governor's veto, but we came to an agreement. So only thing changes from the Police Standard Board to the Labor Relations Board. But they finally came around and agreed we must deal with this critical issue in the criminal justice system. The government said, well, you're trying policemen at a lesser standard. No, that's wrong. In our society, whether you are guilty or not, if you are innocent of a crime, you still must submit to an arrest. You cannot resist the arrest even though you are innocent. You know you're innocent. You cannot resist the arrest, which in turn places more burden of proof on the person making the arrest. They should tell the truth. They should not lie. They should not perjure themselves. And all of these cases get right back to this one point. That's why that provision was so critical. So we overrode the governor's veto, then we did pass the trailer bill. Senator John Cullerton, my judiciary spokesperson, who did such a tremendous job in negotiating with everyone. We passed it now. It's in the House. I'm quite sure Speaker Magg in the House will follow suit. But that would be the last key provision of reforming the criminal justice system. We had a great year, great Democrat caucus. We got this bright young lady over here, Senator Collins. So glad to have her in our caucus. She keeps us all straight. You know, she's graduated from Harvard School of Divinity. Now she in turn keeps us so straight. We don't go out and drink like drunken sailors and all that stuff. Now, so we did all those things, and so now we're back in veto session to deal with emergency measures as well as deal with the governor's mandatory vetoes and vetoes. And a lot of talk, I read about it in the press, you know, about the Secretary of State and the governor. They came to an agreement. And it did come to an agreement because I got the governor's press release right here when they came to the agreement. And the agreement was that those certain amount of dollars would be restored to the Secretary of State, Jesse White's budget. And I think the House overrode the governor's reduction veto. And so there's a big squabble again about how reading is right in the press release. So I don't know what the problem was. Maybe it's a matter of methodology rather than the extra dollar amount. But I will assume that those things would take place in discussion. Now, the General Assembly members are made up of persons who represent all segments of our society. It is a representative form of government. And they are representing the views of the people who elected them. And there was talk about our overriding vetoes. Well, one veto that was overridden in the Senate, that deal with the double whammy as relate to the various school districts across the state of Illinois, is that with the tax cap, if the EAV goes up, that means that they lose money. So they lose money because they got a tax cap at the same time lose state aid. So legislators who represent school districts all across the state of Illinois felt when they passed that legislation, they didn't want their schools to be hurt as a result of double whammy. So the Senate overrode that veto. Now, it has no fiscal impact on the current fiscal year. Maybe in the next school year, after July 1, or next year, it may have an impact. But if it does have an impact, it will send a signal to all school districts that we intend to make education a top priority and keep it a top priority. That's why the vote was so overwhelming on that particular issue. But when I read in the Sun-Times that the Senate and the House did all these different things, it doesn't impact this current fiscal year. But when we prepare the budget next spring for the next fiscal year, it will have an impact, and legislators will be representing their constituencies to see that their schools do not lose any money. So that's what that issue is. And we intend to be with the people who sent us that. That's a representative form of government. And I think we did a pretty good job in dealing with that. Those who follow the General Assembly recall that we passed several fee increases to help balance this budget. When legislation came over from the House last spring, which was flawed, everyone was not in favor of the so-called ethics bill. From my lips to your ears, my job was to try and get the governor's budget out, pass the necessary revenue enhancements to ensure that the budget is balanced. So when you have a major piece of legislation like that, we didn't have the time to put in to deal with that ethics bill, which involved all the constitutional officers as well as the General Assembly. To convene them, try to come to some agreement, we just didn't have time to do that. So we informed the governor that our priority is to help you with that budget. We extrapolated out of the bill that portion that relate to the General Assembly, and we passed that. And made the statement, we will pass the ethics bill this fall when we return in the veto session. But I read the account that said they watered it down. It was not watered down. Had we dealt with the ethics bill or attempted to deal with the ethics bill in late May, we would not have gotten the governor's budget out, which would have meant we would be in overtime session. And when you're in the minority, and I've been in that role, then you have the leverage. All of a sudden, after a certain date, your power goes up. So I was not about ready to let the minority leader get into a position where he could dictate to me. See, my good friend Tom Diamond over the years, he understands that. He helped me with that many years ago. So that's why we got caught in the posture that we did and was not able to deal with the ethics bill because we simply did not have the time to deal with it because we were too busy trying to get the governor's budget out, which we got it out. We had a unified Senate Democratic caucus, and they did a tremendous job. They hung in there with the votes, but it was rather disturbing to me to find out that what we were doing, we were really watering it down. We were not watering it down. And what we were doing was trying to get the governor, this is his first budget, to make sure that he has the budget to run state government. I see the Secretary of Transportation, Tim Martin, sitting back there, make sure everything is be right. He getting ready to do the Kingery and Dan Ryan Expressway. We want to make sure things are right. Education is so important. These are the issues that we're going to be getting into, we're working on. So I went to Tilden Technical High School. I had all the math, I had all the science, and I had all the technical training. I know the chemistry, I know the physical science. If my light switch go out, I can fix it. We got to get back to education our young people. We're losing too many young people because they do not have the skills, vocational skills. Now, they're untaught the vocational skills. And doing so, that big $10 billion O'Hare modernization project we're getting ready to do, well, it would be $10 billion. We're getting ready to expand McCormick Place. We're getting ready, we just got through with Soldier Field. CHA getting ready to spend anywhere from $1.5 billion to $3.5 billion, all in the building trades. The building trades. Those jobs pay good money. You're an electrician, you're a pipe fitter, you're a plumber, you're a steel worker, you're heating and air conditioning. These jobs pay good money. I'll be damned if a lot of the inner city kids who can't get into the skilled trade unions, those apprenticeship programs must come back into the city of Chicago and make them accessible so that our young people can be gainfully employed in the workforce. We're not talking about changing the standards, make it accessible. The apprenticeship program, that job is a job for lifetime. And that's a major issue they're going to be dealing with. The building trades. That electrician, they make good money. That's a job for life. Plumber, pipe fitter, all those skilled building trades. The discriminatory practices as relate to a lot of our inner city youth shall not continue to go on. And so we'll be working on that issue. When the governor was out with Tim Martin and everyone, when they do the damn ride, I want to see some people that look like me working and not just holding a flag. See? And when I made that statement out there, and don't you young ladies get excited, the governor said, I didn't know you look like Denzel Washington. So next week we will return to Springfield. There's a provision, and I hope we pass it next week, and dealing with the hospitals across the state of Illinois. It's a hospital assessment bill which could attract millions of dollars to help many of our hospitals who are in financial need, especially many of the hospitals, community hospitals who serve our community, and these, we call them DISH hospitals, the disproportionate share hospitals. Well, that failed last week because the Republicans refused to support it. It's unfortunate they played politics with it. And Bruce, I know what happened because the governor met with Frank Watson, and they didn't like the nursing home piece to it. So they took the nursing home piece out, and then Frank Watson, the Republicans, still voted against it. So that piece was languished there. We got to deal with that issue next week when we go back in Springfield. And a couple of more major issues will come up. And hopefully we'll be able to come to some accord. Our staffs are all working together to get the final package put together as it relates to the ethics legislation. They met all last week. And see how long it takes to get to put it together? That's why I couldn't do it in the last week in May. If we had, the governor would have to cut his budget, but he would not have gotten the revenue enhancements out to drive the budget. So we didn't water it down. We didn't have time to deal with it. I heard somebody mention Dr. Daniels. Where's Dr. Daniels at university? But I know we made a change last spring, and I made the front page of the Sun-Times. That's where the red streak, too, had my ugly mug on the front page. And we made the revenues from the the gaming, we increased the the tax on the gaming boats, but so far the revenue has not really reflected the change that was made. Now I made a switch, and I sent, if the 10th license ever get on board, that 10th license revenues will go to Chicago State University, and because if it's located in Cook County, that's where the dollar should go, not send it downstate. And in doing so, I thought I was doing a good thing. Matter of fact, I know I was doing a good thing. It enabled me to make the front page of the Sun-Times. So we had a good session. We had a darn good session. It was a great session last week, and I anticipate we'll be able to wrap it up hopefully next week if there aren't any snags. I believe the ethics package should be in place, and hopefully we'll be able to get the hospital assessment out and any other major issues that may come up. You can't get me. You always can get Jesse Madison, my special assistant, sitting here. You know, he handles everything. But it was a great session. Being in the majority is a lot different than being in the minority. And Dr. Barbara Sizemore, we were little kids growing up in Park, she said, you guys can be something. You can be president. And I thought I was going to be the big president. But it's amazing back there, and kids teacher come in, you know, she's talking French. We had enough time with English. She come in teaching French, you know. But those were great days. And actually, Springfield is a great university. It reflects the views of all its citizens across the Illinois. The men and women who serve there, even though we may differ on certain issues, you know, basically they're good, hard-working, decent individuals. And for all of us to come together and try to resolve the issues of the people of Illinois. At the same time, you don't get angry with them, you know, because their views may be a little different than yours. Next year, a commission will be set up to deal with this. Senator Matty Hunter is sponsoring it, and Speaker Madigan will be sponsoring the House. I've already discussed it with him. Next year marks the 50th anniversary of that decision, Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas. And the commission will be set up to commemorate that as well as see what impact that has had on all society. And I'm quite sure that many of you here will be involved in that aspect, but it was a heck of a decision. And so the resolution setting that up passed unanimous in the Illinois Senate. We were not just spending money there, but the SIU University as well as Chicago State University through its Public Policy Institute will be dealing with that issue. Most of the legislators are students of Einstein in Springfield, great university. Einstein's theory as related to matter in space. That's as far as I'm going to go. And so you can check with Steve Neal as related to Einstein theory as related to matter in space. And that's how legislators are in Springfield. And that's how they react. But they are a good group of people. So at this time, Tom Donovan, whoever wants to ask any questions, don't ask any questions you don't know the answer to. Oh, okay, hold it.
The only rule is you have to say what your name is and then ask the question, but make it shorter than the president's speech.
Oh, okay.
My name is Selma Stewart White, and I am a retired teacher here with the Retired Teachers Association of Chicago. I certainly want to begin by applauding you for all the things you've done. And now I'm asking something else. What are we doing about 1269? House Bill 1269. I have a number of concerns for retired teachers. There are many people that retired when the salaries were not as great. We know the cost of living has gone up, medicines and all of these sort of things. And it's not bothering me at this point, but next year it could bother me. And I think that we should deal with the issue. Teachers have done so many things, underpaid and sacrificed time, given money, etc. And I don't think they should be forgotten at this point.
No, you're absolutely right. And you mentioned, you said House bill or Senate bill?
House, I said House.
Is it in the House or is it in the Senate? I don't know offhand.
No, it's from what I saw on the internet. Maybe Bob. It's in the right. That's the Rules Committee. That's what I thought.
See, Justin Madison, we'll look into it and perhaps we'll give you a response as relate to that piece of legislation. Simply because it probably carry a fiscal impact, and reason why it may not have moved as of yet. But see Justin Madison sitting right over here. Right here. Justin, hold your hand up here. And give me information. We'll get back to you and let you know about that.
I want to say, too, Mr. Burrows is our executive director, and I think he wants to make some definite contact. There are 2 tables of retired teachers here, and we want to...
I respect you because we wouldn't, none of us could be where we are without good educators and teachers. We respect the job that you do. Okay?
Thank you.
I forgot to mention, congratulate the City Club as you celebrate your century of service to the people. Not that you're that old, Jay, but your century of service to the people of this great city.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Mike Gonzalez, longtime City Club member. Also wanted to commend you for your comments in terms of access for minorities. I'd like to see some of those workers look like me, too. My question, though, is on another issue. Could you comment on, I believe it's Senate Bill 67, the immigrant driver's license, the likelihood of it passing, and why you think it's important to all citizens of Illinois?
Well, let me respond. It fell by 1 vote. I strongly support the legislation so that we can have safer roads. And, you know, I've often heard people talk about this as a country of immigrants. And I don't think, well, you are a descendant of immigrant, that you should discriminate against the newer immigrants. You got 2 types of immigrants in this country. Those who came voluntarily and those who came involuntarily. And as a descendant of those who came involuntarily, I strongly support it. And hopefully next week when we go back, the reason why it did not pass, I believe we had 2 members that were missing. And so hopefully Senator DeValier, who has worked so hard on that bill, hopefully we'll be able to pass it next week when we go back. Okay?
Hi, Mr. President. My name is Jeff Tangle. It's so good to see you again, and I appreciate your leadership. It's certainly been a long time coming. My question has to do with the current moves in Springfield by Commonwealth Edison to raise utility rates across their territory. And I would wonder if you would support a meaningful requirement that utilities buy as part of their portfolio increasing percentages of renewable energy, and that is in reasonable incremental amounts through the year, say, 2010. Can we expect the leadership in the Senate
Let
to
me ask you a
support that?
question in this manner. I heard all the rhetoric as it relates to the proposal. And what I saw that came out of committee did not have any rate increase. That was erroneous. And the Commerce Commission would deal with those issues. I support ComEd simply because if Illinois Power goes down the tube, I'd rather see an Illinois-based company acquire Illinois Power. It'd be good for Illinois. I'd say one of the major newspapers, maybe 2, endorse the concept. So, but the bill is currently being worked on, and perhaps the issues that you're concerned with will be addressed. But the original bill that came before us did not have any rate increases in it.
I appreciate that. I hope the legislature will consider a comprehensive package that includes good things for Illinois citizens, and that will create jobs, too.
Right.
And thank you
Okay.
again.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Senator. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm Dave Seglin with the City of Chicago, Department of Transportation. And with the Illinois First coming to an end very soon, what do you think the prospects are of getting another bill so that we can generate the revenue that we're going to need not only to match the federal funding that we might receive in the next federal transportation bill, but just also for the transportation projects that we want to carry on ourselves.
Well, I believe you should address that issue to the governor. You know, I was just over here, you know, I'm so glad the Sun-Times is here. we get the hell beat out of us for many things that we do. Just this past Saturday, I was at the grand opening of the Joan and Irvin Harris Dance Theater right here on East Randolph in Millennium Park. Very lovely facility. And you ever hear that term used by the press sometimes about member initiatives? I always contend a legislator know the needs of his community better than some bureaucrat sitting down in Springfield. They're sensitive to it because that's how they run and get elected on this. So with Illinois First, we got together and said, we're going to make sure that these dollars come back to help our community. Well, $10 million of those dollars went to help build that, along with the joint venture from the city and many private contributors, went into that dance theater in Millennium Park, be a showplace for all Chicago. But if you have a bureaucrat sitting down in Springfield trying to decide whether or not they should get the money, then it may not have happened. So, but that question you should ask the governor, whether or not he wants to move toward another Illinois First type program. I basically believe it is needed. And when we did the original one, Chicago and this mass transit was able to access the federal dollars to, I think, take care of the Wacker Drive reconstruction, as well as the mass transit CTA. So we did it then. Another program may be needed, but I'm not going to initiate it, then have the governor veto it. He's gone, okay.
Jeff Berkowitz, host and producer of Public Affairs, airing every Monday night on CAN TV throughout the city of Chicago. 8:30 p.m., Channel 21. Tonight's guest, State Representative Lou Lang. Next week, Gary Chico.
Oh,
And we hope sometime soon, Senate President Emil Jones.
that'd be a wise thing to do.
We'll take that as a commitment.
Okay.
Senate President Jones, as you know, Governor Blagojevich ran, I think, on one of the planks of his platform was that he would not raise the income tax or the sales tax. He kept that commitment last year for this year's budget, 03-04. I'm wondering if you think he will keep that commitment for 04-05, and if not, what do you envision in terms of an increase in either the sales tax or the income tax? What form might that take? Tax swap or something else?
Well, I'm not one to be able to look into the mind of the governor and see what he thinks. But I do recognize that we will face a budgetary shortfall in the next fiscal year. We, in putting together this budget, there was a lot of one-time revenues fixes that will not be there next year. And so we've got to figure out how we're going to do it and how can we do this in a year when you have an election. There's still a strong push, which I support, but I don't think the will of the General Assembly is there, and that is to deal with the serious issue as related to our constant rising of the property taxes. We should shift from funding education from property tax to the state income tax, which is more fair and equitable. I do not favor raising sales tax because that's the most regressive of all taxes. It's too regressive, so I'm not in favor of raising sales tax, but it's something that we've got to do, and the governor says he's not going to raise taxes, so we got to figure out a way to get that budget balanced next spring.
As a leader of the state Senate and the legislature, what type of an increase in the income tax what type of an increase in income tax would you push for if you couldn't?
Well, I'm not going to push for anything that's not going to be, it's got to come from the person charged with the responsibility of managing the state government. That's not my responsibility. That's the governor's responsibility. So you should ask that question of the governor. I'm not pushing for the increase in the income tax. But I do recognize that for education, to help many of those persons who are on fixed income with the local property taxes continuing to rise, that we should do something. But as far as whether or not the governor can get his budget together without raising the income tax, you have to ask him that question.
All right, we'll look forward to having both of you on my show.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your presence here today. My name is Aileen Williams, and I have a statement and a question for you, Mr. President. The first is to say thank you for the technical training. I myself am a graduate of Westinghouse High School and then secondary education, and so I know the importance of obtaining technical training to move forward. My question is this. Has anyone in the legislation looked at the fact that with the influx of the ex-offender population coming into the city of Chicago boundaries, the fact that a lot of these young men and women, even though we can get them trained in technical trades, a lot of them will not be able to get jobs because of their background. So my question is, or I would propose this, the possibility of adding some sort of training program in addition to the technical training that will allow them to do some sort of entrepreneurship training, that they'll get the skill sets that they need and then possibly open their own business to step out on their own.
Programs need to be set forth within the Department of Correction for those type programs and funding if necessary. But we recognize it's a serious societal problem. And because one does not have the job skills or cannot get gainful employment, they go back to their old habits.
Exactly.
And something we've got to seriously deal with. And I know the Safer Foundation works in that endeavor, but as far as getting the necessary trainings and so they can open their own type business, you're still going to need training to do that equally as well. And so it's something through the workforce development type. And these are federal dollars that come to the state, it comes to the city of Chicago. These are federal dollars for workforce development, perhaps locally. You can tap into those funds as well for those type programs.
Okay, thank you. My second comment is this. With the bill that was passed for the seniors in the prescription drug care, without having seen the bill in its totality personally, my question is this. Was the segment of the population included in that bill that was not the age of retirement? People that were receiving Social Security disability, as an example, that may fall into the age range of 20 to 60 years old. I know a segment of the population that I dealt with in workforce development that when they came into social service agencies, they had difficulties with getting their prescription drugs costs and taking care of that, because Medicare did not identify them per se because they were not a senior citizen. Additionally, they had areas of trouble with respect to housing and things of that nature, because even though they were quote unquote disabled, because of their age range, they didn't fall into that category. Is there anything on the table where someone has taken a look at that or possibly taken a
this
look
program that we passed dealt with senior citizens that we dealt with, and the criteria as it relate to how one become a senior citizen. The older you get, I just had a birthday last month, for every year it seems like you're going to add another pill, you know. So, but that segment of the population that you're talking about was not inclusive in this legislation that we passed.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions for the president? Seeing none. Boy, you made him sweat. Mr. President, another one-year membership to the City Club. We don't want you to balance the state budget on the back of the City Club. You could pay up for one of these. Things get rough out there. You can, help the budget with that. And
I could get this gold off here.
how about a big round of applause? Great job.
My cup runneth over.
And don't forget December 3rd, we're going to sell out